Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Solo Q. I'm your host, Michael Damiani. This week, I'm joined by guest Stealth. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on. This should be a fun discussion.
Yeah, fun discussion. And full disclosure, this is a speculative rumor episode. Back when I did friend code, people were like, dang, you do so many Switch rumors and speculation episodes. Well, you know what? We haven't done one on Solo Q yet. And I have a feeling this will probably be the one and only one we ever do because there's a lot of smoke about Switch 2. And we are closing in on that deadline. Like, we are, what, like 6 months away from the supposed deadline that Nintendo themselves gave for announcing and revealing the Switch 2. So yeah, time's running out. So I feel like this was a great time to do it. And there's fun because we have like two wildly different variations of the rumors. As usual, so many different rumors. We've got images this time. We've got secret meetings. We got all this great stuff. But before we dive into it, you know the usual thing we do. Stealth, could you just let our listeners and viewers know a little bit about yourself before we dive into the episode?
Sure. Most people probably know me from Twitter, where I talk about Nintendo news, RPG news, and just general gaming news that I want to talk about, basically. And yeah, I've been a guest of yours for a few years now.
And it's always been a pleasure having you on. Such good talks. And I know Simmons mentioned you when he was on talking about Zelda stuff with us with that Zelda timeline update a few weeks ago, mentioning about when Monolith Soft might drop their, when Switch 2 gets announced, will they drop, a trailer for their new project? And he's like, yeah, we got to get back on and talk about that. And I know you're going to get Stealth too, right? I'm like, yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm very excited because this means we're getting.
I was watching that episode. I was surprised by where the discussions went.
Yeah, yeah. Simmons is always a great guy to talk to, and like very passionate about Zelda. I will say, like, I feel like while we agree on a lot of stuff about Zelda, we diverge a lot, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the directions he goes with this stuff and where I think I go. I do know like he's not as high on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as other people are, and he really wants like a return to to return back to more traditional 3D Zelda and build upon that. But he still like really enjoyed those games. I think he, like me, misses like dungeons, new items, and I think he'd like them to really reevaluate how they do storytelling in those games because it's for him they're really failing on that. So if check out that was the last episode. We asked if the Zelda timeline's still relevant. That was my clickbait title to get everyone to watch it. Very interesting where we go, and like some of the comments on that were pretty interesting too. It was kind of a there were people who are, especially on our Echoes of Wisdom discussion, some people were not very happy about our thoughts on it. Stealth, they thought basically thinking like us assuming that it was going to be a more traditional Zelda game when they revealed it, and saying like, no, why you did that to yourselves, like why when did it ever claim to be a more old school style Zelda? And so people were saying like we were just kind of like wishing it into existence, when Nintendo wasn't showing that. Anyway, yeah, that was a fun episode. But yeah, Monolith Soft, drop that trailer when Switch 2 so we can dive into that. Yeah, but we Switch 2. We're here to talk about it. We had a lot of things happen this past week. And so we'll start with pretty much, I think, the first thing, Stealth, and get your thoughts on this secret meeting that took place. The Council of Elrond over. It's like the secret meeting which you were not invited to. So it was, I believe, Liam Robertson messaged out, I believe on Blue Sky, saying seems a lot of developers got invited to NOA today. And we saw some like other tweets with people taking photos in front of the Nintendo of America sign. Yeah, what do you make of this, Stealth?
Yeah, I mean, out of everything that's been rumored and leaked and all of that, I think this is the most interesting because it's the only real thing that we don't have an explanation for. That happened. Like, we know it happened. People just didn't imagine other developers at Nintendo of America. So I think it's really exciting. Obviously, we know Limited Run Games was there. And, why would they need to be there? Well, they probably care what the physical media is of Switch 2, because I'm sure they're going to be doing a lot of games like they've done for Switch. And usually when Nintendo invites folks to Nintendo of America, it's journalists, as you
Mm-hmm.
probably know, to demo games before a big preview embargo goes live, which is usually what happens. This is not that case. When they're inviting developers to Nintendo of America, that's like Fort Knox, in terms of like secrecy and things like that. So, yeah, I definitely think that was Switch 2 related. I just do. I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, I feel like if nobody's talking about it and nobody knows what it was for, it's probably a heavily embargoed Switch 2 information dump, I think.
I have to believe it's something that's not just like a game, because we usually will hear from someone, like somehow it just slips out and we know, because people, even in that discussion thread from the original reveal, people are saying, oh, influencers are also being sent to a secret location. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
well, that's for Pokemon. Someone already kind of like let slip that's for a Pokemon preview. And it's like, oh, and like echoes of wisdom. It kind of slipped someone like, oh, I'm at Nintendo. So, it always comes out. That hasn't happened with this. So it's like, oh, well, they're being really secretive about what they're seeing here. So it's like, maybe it's something more. And then, as we said, this past week, other things were just coming out left and right. It just, threw fuel on the fire for these Switch 2 rumors, and that we are very close to maybe a Switch 2 reveal. So that's my take on it too. So that's
Yeah,
what.
obviously we know with very high likelihood Switch 2 is coming out next year. So most of Nintendo's big development partners already have it. Like the Square Enixes of the world, the Namcos of the world, the Segas of the world, they already have dev kits if they're putting out games next year. They just do. So it makes sense for Nintendo to bring in people who probably don't have it yet,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe just need the information or want to know the information before it's like official. Um, so it makes a lot of sense why they would do this. And as you said, like, and I think I tweeted this. There's like less than 200 days until like Nintendo's deadline of when they have to announce, or when they said they were going to announce this thing.
Yeah.
March 31st, 2025. That's it. We're gonna know about it before then, I think. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's coming up. Like it just feels like it is. And yeah, no one's been able to explain why they were there. There's been no leaks of this meeting about what's in it, because I think everyone's really afraid of being the one that Nintendo's
It-
gonna find, because Nintendo has a list of everyone who's there,
oh yeah.
and if it leaks out, there's gonna be an investigation into that.
Those, yeah, that especially for their hardware. This is something they
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, software they're pretty aggressive, but you can imagine the hardware. I mean, they straight up lie to the biggest journalists when they have receipts, and they're like, "No, there's no 3DS. Like, what? There's no. It's not. We're not announcing that. It's like week later. Yeah, stuff like that. We also know there were reports at previous events that developers were seeing supposedly the Switch 2 hardware at major events. We've seen that in the past year, been reported. So we do know, very, as you said, it's very likely these developers have that and have their big partners have it in hand already and are probably developing those first wave of games, because that was one of the rumors early this year, is that internally, even though we never had a release date for Switch 2, internally, Nintendo's own thinking, they pushed it back so that they could have more software ready for that launch window that first year. And so that would make sense with this. So yeah, at this meeting, I mean, I think it points to a lot of stuff, indicating that there's, it's probably something with Switch 2 or successor hardware. Unless there's like some brand new top secret game that's like the most innovative thing that Nintendo just doesn't want anyone to know, but like, which is more likely.
But then why would they invite developers
Yeah, and
to
it's
a
like developers
software?
too. It's like, yeah, none of it make
I
like I
mean, I
saw.
mean, is there like a Switch OLED XL or something? Like, is
Yeah,
there a new Switch
it,
model? That doesn't seem likely.
it's the Switch Pro finally. We're finally getting the Switch Pro. No, 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 no. But for some of the rumors we've had about what the Switch 2 is this week, so I go on the heels of this meeting. I want to get into the one that's like probably a little less likely. and that is the rumors that the Switch 2 is going to have. So this came from a well-known industry insider, as well as a separate report from Taiwan. They're saying that Nintendo Switch 2 might have 2 screens, and with 2 screens, it would pave the way for Switch 2 to support DS and 3DS libraries. But obviously, this would mean other complications, like the increased development and production cost. But this kind of goes against a lot of things we have seen and a lot of other rumors, including Nintendo president Shintaro Furukawa, apparently suggesting that like Switch 2, might look a little bit more similar to its predecessor, being a more wild variant. So yeah, this one came out this week. There were some, people who bought into it, but a lot of the discourse I saw said there's like absolutely no way this is gonna happen.
I don't think it's believable at all. I think if there is ever DS backwards compatibility with Switch 2, it'll be like the Castlevania DS collection where there's just a second screen somewhere on the screen and not like via an actual second screen. So I think that's just false.
Yeah, I agree. And that made me think a lot. Like Konami just put this work into making a DS collection, Castlevania collection. And I don't know if they were the first to come up with a solution for DS games running on Switch like that, but I kind of liked it. It was satisfactory for the touchscreen functionality. You can use touchscreen or use an analog stick to move a cursor. And I'm like, that should be fine, honestly, for most things. And so a little small, I would say, but honestly, I think that will be the way for anyone else who wants to do it, or just completely rework your game so that it doesn't need dual screen functionality. So this one just seemed wild, but I think people were intrigued because it's like, it sounds like a kind of Nintendo thing to like do something crazy like this, because they are known for having some kind of like gimmick with their new hardware, but this time feels a little bit different. I feel like this time they don't want to jeopardize the momentum they have, and that maybe being a little bit more similar and just, making some quality of life updates and then beefing up the hardware might actually be the right answer this time. Like the hybrid nature is still very, compelling to a lot of people. A lot of people I think still just wanted to have like a little bit more power so it can run some of the newer games on there, since, Switch is such an aging piece of hardware.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I love the DS and 3DS. I don't think a second screen is an answer this time, especially when they're probably looking to get ports of, PS4 and PS5 games. I don't think they want to be so different now where the games have to be completely different. Like that's not like the environment we're in the game industry, where teams can just, okay, now here's the, Switch 2 exclusive game, like that, where it needs to be on Switch 2 alone because it has this 2-screen stuff. I just don't think that's what Nintendo's going to go for.
Yeah. And again, this rumor came from Taiwan Economic Daily, and it was Christopher Dring, who I believe kind of said something about like another screen, but like when I think the clarification said like maybe they're thinking of like a TV screen. They weren't talking about like an actual separate screen on like the piece of hardware. So yeah, I'm with you, man. It would be wild to see. I mean, it would be very attention grabbing, and it might be a novelty again. But I think, while I love the DS, like the Nintendo DS is my favorite like handheld system. Like I absolutely like the DS Lite too. Love that stuff. And I enjoy the 3DS too. But I think it had its time, dual screen, and it's time to move on from that. So I do think like that's probably not true, but you never know. It could be shocking, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's gonna happen. The other rumor and report about what's going on with Nintendo Switch seems a little bit more believable. And this came from was it Fama Boards, I believe. Let me just make sure. Yes, it was from Fama Boards, and it was cross-posted to Reddit, and it made it everywhere else. It basically said that like Switch 2 has started production. It's going to be larger than a normal Switch, black and white Joy-Cons, and it just seemed like it was way more believable. And then we had some images that came along with this as well, some renderings, and then people even 3D printed those renderings out to like be like, I'm the first one to hold a Switch 2. So there was two things in there: the images and then the reports about a bigger Switch 2 with black and white Joy Cons, like seemed like pretty much the same. There was a little bit more. Hang on, it was. Where was it? Okay, here we go. Market speculation: the Switch 2 screen is likely to be enlarged again. And yeah, that was it. And then like the price point. That was the other one. It said $400, I believe, was what they were shooting for. So yeah, that stuff sounded more believable. Is that? I mean, I think it sounded believable to you too, Stealth. But I mean, do you think this is what it's going to be more likely, that the Switch 2 is going to be just more likely more of the same? And then what did you think of the images that came out as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be more of the same, and also as part of this, we got like the specs too,
Yeah.
and the specs even were in line with what we had heard previously, where it's like, yeah, like the power of it is between like PS4 Pro and Xbox Series, but obviously with DLSS, it's gonna look better potentially. So I think it wasn't like outrageous, like black and white Joy Cons, maybe a black and white version system. That all seems fairly standard to me. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the images, yeah, I posted it. I didn't really, obviously, I said in my post, take it with a grain of salt. This is a rumor, but I never really thought, okay, these are images directly from Nintendo. It seemed like someone had made them. And then I guess, but with those, there were a couple of actual images, of like, I think, a Joy-Con and like
Yes.
kind of the back of a system that also came with these images.
Yes.
And those were like real. Those were not like 3D renderings. And I guess what we've kind of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've found out now is like the 3D renderings were
Yes.
created by someone who claims to have who claims to be in the factory or something, and then made them to look like what it looks like. But then the actual images are actually like older like versions of the Switch 2 that were being produced. Like that was real. So I can let you address that.
Yeah, I mean it's gone like back and forth. We had like what was it, Andy Robinson on Andy VGC who tweeted out that like this a Chinese website claims to have leaked the Switch successor, and then like pointed out that like the source appeared to be like a Chinese 3D printing and reverse design enthusiast. But then as we saw, we had like actual photos of real things in there as well, not like renderings or models. And then like there was like apparently like multiple sets. So I think the problem is like because it's all you have to file this all into rumor, and then it's coming from multiple different places and multiple different iterations. It just like muddies the water so much that like you kind of like can't take it at face value. But like we're very likely gonna, like, when it's revealed, we'll be like, oh, those were real, that was close.
Yeah.
But like we'll know in time. But like it does seem like a lot of these are like getting very close to what we're likely going to see with the Switch 2. And that's the other thing, the name and all these rumors. The rumors are all saying that the name will just be Switch 2. And I'm kind of curious what you thought about that, because so many people have speculated. I can't tell you how many time I've been on Roger Base's podcast speculating about names for this system, and it sounds like Switch 2 might just be the winner in the end. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning toward it being Switch 2. It would be pretty unlike. I mean, it would be unlike Nintendo to name it that, and like have it be like, I don't know, just some other subtitle. But in this case, because Switch has been so successful and it works for PlayStation, I think it'll just be Switch 2. I think that's just what it's going to be. And honestly, that in itself would be exciting, because that would kind of indicate, oh, now Nintendo's being a little bit more like PlayStation in this regard. It's not like Evolve or Rewind or all these other crazy names that, I've heard that could be. I think Switch 2 is fine, and it makes sense. Again, we aren't going to know until Nintendo officially reveals it. But yeah, I mean, I think, this particular set of rumors, it's hard to tell like what's real and what's not. I'm leaning toward most of it being true. I just am, but I wouldn't put my money on it. It's the Nintendo of America secret meeting that I think I'm a lot more confident on that was Switch 2 related.
Yeah.
Based on how they do things. But yeah, I think Switch 2 is perfectly fine. Wii U had a completely different set of problems besides the name and people being confused because of the U, and that wasn't a 2. It was just the way Nintendo revealed it. They didn't even show the system. So they didn't make it seem like, they made it seem like it was just part of Wii U, the Wii line or something. And then plus, there were not a lot of games, and I don't think Switch 2 is going to have that problem.
Yeah.
Um, so I think Switch 2, good enough for me. It's not exciting, but it's good enough.
I also think it implies more continuity.
Yeah.
It's a better, indication that you have continuity between the platforms, and they've indicated, pretty much so far that like they're strongly considering backwards compatibility, strongly considering bringing your purchases forward, like your digital purchases forward. Possibly even like we'll see how they handle enhancements, but that seems to be what a lot of consumers want as indicative of like the other platforms that are already offering stuff like that in their own ways. So I think Nintendo is going to match that in their own way as well. And also like besides the confusion with Wii U, some of the more, old-fashioned ways of Nintendo's naming, I don't think also would, while they might be cute and quirky, I don't think they might pose similar problems like Super Switch or Switch Advance. It's like, I mean, that was because who they were marketing to back then kind of understood it. But when you're going for such a wider audience that has been opened up since Wii, I think that was their first misstep, was not really realizing so many people playing their products are not just quote unquote gamers anymore. It's like regular people who don't really keep up with that lingo. So when they hear Wii U, they're like, what? So I think they've learned their lesson. And I think Switch 2 is right on the money. I would be absolutely shocked if it's not called Switch 2 or some variation of Switch 2 with something in it. The other question I want to have for you real quick, Stealth, about these leaks is they all seem to indicate a larger size. How do you feel about the Switch 2 being larger? I've seen some people say they feel like that might make it more uncomfortable for them. We also have like the Steam Deck and other portable gaming devices that have gone larger. But like form factor, people are also saying like they're worried that the form factor on a larger version might not feel as comfortable. So how do you feel about a larger size, and do you have concerns about it, or do you think it'll be fine?
I mean, when I play Switch, I play pretty much like 20% on my 90% on my TV, and then like maybe 10% portably, and I don't even leave the house with Switch. If I'm playing portably, it's in bed or something. So like I'm not like keeping it in my, like, I don't know. I think it's not. I don't think it happens as often where like just people are just carrying handheld systems in their pockets. I think they're carrying smartphones in their pockets and they're putting their handhelds in their backpack or something. So like I don't think a larger form factor is, and again, it depends like how, aeronomically nice it is, how it is to hold. Like I don't think, just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's necessarily worse in terms of form factor, but it doesn't really affect me one way or the other.
Yeah, that's first point I want to address, and I think is a good point. You said like you don't really even leave the house with it. I wonder if they have their own research that shows a lot of people don't leave the house with their Switch. They do, like, they do engage in playing in a hand, because I play I would want to say 50-50 to maybe 60-40 leaning in handheld mode, just because I play a lot of like retro collections on Switch, which don't really need to be played. They don't lose any fidelity by being played in handheld mode. And I play like in my bed or on my couch a lot like that, just because it's a little bit more comfortable for me to sit like that. But I'm still in my house. I almost never take it out, except when was going to the studio for Easy Allies. But I wouldn't count that as really going out. It's like just bringing it into another building to play inside. Like I'm not playing it on a bus or a train or outdoors. So I wonder.
And if people do travel with it, how often are they traveling with it in their pockets?
Exactly. That's the point. So, and I think maybe they're looking at like people who have like, so many people use tablets, iPads, and those are bigger than Switches. So it's like people like having a bigger thing when they're just like comfortably indoors and don't mind doing that. Yeah. So I think being bigger is probably fine. I would be interested to see if they like the Joy-Con ergonomics are maybe addressed a little bit, because a lot of the rumors say it's not gonna be like the snap in anymore, but it'll be like it just like attaches from the side. So like how it like popping it in and out of the dock, like how easy will that be? But also like how it feels in your hands with like the Joy Cons. I'm kind of curious because one of the things they've shown is. And I think someone explained the reason why it has to be this way. We're not getting a traditional D-pad again with the base set of Joy Cons. It seems like we're just getting those buttons because when you split off the Joy Cons, they need to have like identical functionality, and D-pad would kind of compromise those as being face buttons for one version of the Joy Cons. I heard that explanation, but yeah, do you expect like the Joy Con? From what you've seen, do you expect anything radically different with the Joy Cons? Do you think like it's going to stay with buttons and not a D-pad as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna stay pretty close to what they've already established with Switch, and maybe there'll be like a super HD rumble or something, or an enhanced HD rumble. And like, I don't know, now you can put like 5,000 amiibo in the area and they'll all work. Something like that, where it enhances what, the Joy-Cons already do. But I don't think it's gonna add, because again, like for the sake of backwards compatibility, like, everything Switch can do, Switch 2 needs to do. And of course they'll add new features, but I don't think there's going to be too much more.
Sure. Let me ask you about the question. I see you mentioned in chat, and it's on a lot of people's minds. Joy-Con drift.
No, no, because I like I'm not an expert, but isn't the point of them maybe moving to like magnetic connections supposedly going to make that not a thing?
I
I'd like to think, and I forget the name for it, but there is like a way where it doesn't have where they wouldn't drift. I forget the name for it though. So, for the sake of Nintendo not wanting to deal with lawsuits and returns, I think they are gonna, whatever solution they have, they'll fix it or minimize it.
Yeah, I think they will too. I think they just don't want to deal with the headache of that, possibly gaining more traction because it popped up a lot of times during Switch's lifespan, but it like never derailed the Switch. But you never know if it happens again. That could be a bigger thing, a bigger fire to put out. The other thing is like they left it up to third-party manufacturers this time to make iterations of Joy-Cons that had a D-pad. I forget who I bought it from. Like I bought like a pair of Zelda themed ones that the left Joy-Con had a normal D-pad, like you see on the Pro controller. Do you think Nintendo might ever like offer official versions of the Joy-Con that the left one has a D-pad, or even like moving the sticks and buttons so like you have the sticks on the same horizontal line, like either the top or the bottom, kind of like how PlayStation does? Do you think they'll ever do that, or they're gonna leave it up to like third
no,
parties?
I mean, in 8 years, has Nintendo ever done any major Joy-Con revision for Switch? No.
I guess I'm getting at like how like both Microsoft and Sony did like a Pro controller. Like we had the dual Edge, and then like the
I don't think
Xbox
they're
Pro.
going to do a Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do a Pro Joy-Con. I do think they are going to do a Pro controller, because honestly, that's what I use like 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just use the Pro controller.
Yeah.
That they'll have where it attaches, to the Switch and you can play it on the TV. In terms of like a Pro Joy-Con with like extra stuff on it, I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess also with the controller, I'm more curious if they would do something like that, like two versions of the controller, the standard version of the controller, and then like one with like back, paddles on the back and all those bells and whistles where you can replace. That doesn't seem, yeah, that never seemed like Nintendo's MO. I feel like they'd leave that up to like a third-party manufacturer to do something like that.
I mean, they never did it on Switch. I mean, the Joy-Cons have stayed the way they are for 8 years, without like any like special new Joy-Con with some new function. No, it's never happened. So I'd be surprised if they did it this time.
Let me also ask you. We're talking about like still on the Switch like models. It's been mentioned before, and it kind of came up again a little bit this week in the discourse. Possibility of like multiple versions at launch.
Yeah.
Like 2 SKUs, because like Wii U did do that. Switch did not, but we did get like OLED and Switch Lite eventually. Do you think they're gonna do something like that or no?
I mean, as much as I've kind of railed against other companies doing it and how much it doesn't interest me, I think there's going to be like a physical and a digital edition.
Okay. And do you think it'll be as steep as a discount on the digital, like we've seen with others, like 100? It's usually about $100 cheaper. Do you think Nintendo's? I'm sorry.
I think it'd be $100 less.
Okay. And that
Yeah.
price point, do you think like the default model, the one with physical media, $399 is? Do you think that's the price point for that, or do you think it's gonna be a little bit higher this time around?
I mean, I've seen people say it could be like 4.99, but I think they're gonna stick to 3.99. I just do. Um, and I think they're gonna move to $70 games too, fully, like not just with Zelda.
I not
Yeah,
shocked by that's shocked Pikachu face. Like, yeah, that's not. Yeah, that seems very.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for Switch, I mean, if they did have two models, I do think it's going to be the physical version that's going to be significantly more popular. Um, But yeah, I mean, people kind of underestimate how active. I mean, Nintendo does like give away like year subscriptions to like their Switch Online. Um, but yeah, I think there just is going to be a digital only version for folks who want it, and I'm sure they will. But I think that's going to be the move versus like a bigger hard drive or something like that, like Wii U did. Um, but I don't think I think it's either going to be one model like Switch, which would be fine, or it's going to be a digital model like Xbox and PlayStation did.
Okay, I can see like that digital version being like more plausible than like a hard drive size difference. I think the days of that are kind of like over. It's like newer iterations might have a bigger one, but like you don't do that like at launch. Like it doesn't feel like a good idea to do at launch anymore. I did see real quick a comment in chat from Red Sky because we were talking about like digital versus cartridge or physical media. They want to know if there been any rumors about like the cartridge sizes for Switch 2. Like, will they be the same or bigger? Because I'm thinking like DS and 3DS where they could like DS could play DS games, but also had like the GBA slot. So
Yeah.
do you think like I mean, what do you think? And have you heard anything? Because I actually haven't really heard anything about like cartridge sizes, honestly, that I can
No, I mean
remember.
we haven't heard anything about that, but I do think it's going to be just bigger in general,
Like
just
like
based on the game
physical size or just storage capacity? Do you mean?
storage capacity.
Okay, yeah. So like it would form factor. It will just be like the same as like a Switch cartridge. You think?
Yeah, I mean, it might look different
Okay.
just for like piracy stuff, like what 3DS did,
Yeah.
where
Okay.
it was a different, it was like a slightly different card and it could hold more, but it looked different, even though it was backwards compatible. I do think Switch 2 will be fully physically backwards compatible. Um, and it might even go in the same slot. I just think somehow they're gonna make the cartridge look different. Um, and yeah, it's just gonna be bigger. So like more games are able to foot fully on it, which is a problem Switch has right now. But like storage is getting cheap, very cheap. I think they'll find a way to just make it work.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think like it has to like just be kind of close. I think the variance, as you said, would probably just be due to like Nintendo's history of like being very having anti-piracy measures on any way they can do it just to make it harder for people to do. But yeah, I would be actually very shocked if it like A didn't have backwards compatibility and B wasn't the cartridges were like roughly same looking, just as you said, larger storage capacity because those games are gonna they're getting bigger. Um, I'm curious about like what they're gonna like, especially if they have a digital edition. Um, the hard drive size because the Switch they just let you put in a micro SD to expand your storage capacity. And I would guess they would probably lean on like doing that again, putting it on the user to expand their storage and not give you like a significant amount. Like I feel like it'll probably be more than Switch's storage capacity by default, but not enough that like if you get a digital edition, you're gonna need to get it like a micro SD. Like, do you think that's the case, or do you have a different thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think all of a sudden they're gonna have like terabytes and terabytes of storage. For like every game you're ever gonna need throughout the system's life. I don't think it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be similar, where you're gonna have to buy your own solution.
Screaming Argonaut in chat has a very important question. How will these cartridges taste when do we think they're
Probably terrible. Probably not
I
good. I mean,
do you realistically expect like week one of launch someone to lick it and just be
of
like
course.
be a headline of like all
It's gonna
right
be a headline. It's gonna be a meme. It's gonna be like the biggest tweet of the week.
yep,
When it
taste
happened.
the same as Switch cartridges. Don't lick them.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh
I'll,
man.
I'll be honest. I never licked a Switch cartridge. I never had the desire to after I read what people were tasting. But yeah, I mean, obviously the point is they don't want kids swallowing them. They want it to taste bad. Like animals in the wild have that same function. Many of them do. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be similar. And yes, someone's going to taste. There's going to be 20 people tasting it
Hmm. For sure. Yep.
and then licking the dock. There's going to be all sorts of weird stuff going on.
Hmm. Uh, the last thing I would ask, because we get some questions about stuff we've talked about in the past. I feel like I guess for like example, like we have Jez in chat asking like what they think the big launch title is going to be for Switch 2. So like we're going to start like covering some of like that ground again. We talked about like what we think the firmware, like the OS is going to be like, what software is going to be on there, what features from the OS that we hopefully maybe return or come back and stuff like that. But yeah, we could start with that. What you think like the big launch title is going to be. And again, we've talked about this many times in the past, so
Yeah,
if you've heard
I
this,
mean,
we apologize.
yeah, I mean, and anyone who follows me knows what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be the next 3D Mario game. By the 3D Mario team. They haven't done a full game since Odyssey 7+ years ago now. We're due for that. And while it might not be as big of a launch title as a Zelda game would, when you compare like 30 million for Breath of the Wild versus 20 million for or almost I forget where Odyssey is now. I think it might be 25 million. Let me look that up. Actually, I don't want to say anything wrong.
It's behind. It's not quite at 30, yeah. But I mean, it definitely. They were like neck and neck for a long time, and then Breath of the Wild just kind of
Oh,
like put
it's
distance.
28 million, so they're pretty close.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I knew they were.
but yeah, I think it's going to be an open world 3D Mario that looks like a PS4 Pro game, which for a Nintendo fan is going to be mind blowing. Um, but yeah, I think it's going to be 3D Mario.
I want to ask you about that real quick because it's on my mind, and it comes on the heels of the Astrobot discourse,
Yes.
and specifically the discourse about how a tight knit level design, like more linear level design game, and shorter, really paid off with Astrobot, and the fears and the comments coming out from the development team as well about like we didn't want to make like an open world platformer because it's like quality over quantity, like the density, like it would not be as good if you made it so open. Do you like when we say open world Mario? Do we like mean like real big sandbox, or do we think like maybe like Bowser's Fury is kind of like the
Yeah, but
scale of it?
I mean,
Yeah, I guess
yeah, I mean,
clarify
it's
that
going
a
to be
little
a
bit.
sandbox, maybe some different biomes. But like, I don't think I mean, Team Asobi is not a big team. I don't think we should compare what they think they can do versus what like the 3D Mario team can do. I love Astrobot. It's honestly one of my favorite games of the year. Um, but I don't think it's fair to like compare them at all. In terms of like pedigree and team size and all of that. So, yeah, I think if anyone could make anything work in the 3D platforming space, it's the 3D Mario team. So like I'm not worried about it.
Do you think? I don't want to do too much speculation on like next like what the Mario be, but the one question I want to ask before we move on from it.
Bowser will be in it. Bowser will be in it.
Oh, yeah, that was the big question. Will Bowser be in
Yeah.
it once again? Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. Bowser, but the spin on this is will he be playable and from the start? Because I want to know about playable characters. Do you think they with such a big like game like that, it kind of screams like let you maybe choose different characters. Now they haven't in the past with Mario, the 3D Mario. I mean, there've been some instances of it, but I don't know. Like part of like some of these Nintendo franchises, especially with like Mario and like the ML for some of these is like bringing in guest characters. It seems to be one of the trendy things now. So like, would you see like Mario and Luigi playable? Throwing in like Peach playable as well? Like also Yoshi playable? Like, do you think they're gonna like would ever do that for something like this, or do you think they're gonna like stick to
I
like just Mario being it with like different power ups, and that's kind of like the extent of it?
I think I think it's going to be Luigi. But if we kind of incorporate some of the other rumors we've heard about this game, and who knows if they're true or not, probably not true, maybe Donkey Kong.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Was yeah, Donkey Kong. That's what I want to see. I want to see the Mario and DK team up in a platformer where they just throw
Yeah.
in like I would be blown away by taking the best of Donkey Kong and the best of Mario and throwing them into a brand new Mario game like that. and
Yeah.
seeing like the spirit of like the Donkey Kong Country games brought into 3D finally. You know, I know people love Donkey Kong
Yeah.
64, something that has its fans, but
I
I go ahead.
Yeah, no, as I was saying, I think the major game is 3D Mario. With like, if I had to, I think it's more likely that Mario is going to be solo. But if it wasn't, then I think like the second thing would be Luigi, and the third thing would be Donkey Kong. I don't think Bowser would be playable. But like speaking of like I don't think it's going to be at launch. I think 3D Mario is going to be the showpiece. But then I think like the next month we get like the next Mario Kart, brand new
Oh.
Mario Kart, which is might as well just be a launch game and big launch reason to buy it. So I think it's going to be like 3D Mario and then Mario Kart, but not like a port of Deluxe, which I think honestly in like a couple of years after they might port Deluxe with all the content on Kart just to have like a second kart racer. But I think there's going to be I think they've made a brand new one, and I think they released that DLC when no one thought they would, just to give them some time so people would stop asking for a new Mario Kart on Switch, just to like push it off.
Hmm. I so for I think those are the most likely candidates. I would personally would flip them. I still strongly believe that the new Mario Kart will be the launch game, because it is like it just keeps selling. It is like the Nintendo's GTA. It is like their biggest franchise now. Like
It's true, and that's probably where we disagree, because I just have this old school mentality where it's like you need a single player
I
game.
understand that too.
Yeah,
I like that's why I almost like both, but like like when Nintendo likes to like they know what they have and like you're gonna buy this, and like why would we burn them both at launch? Like only either one of these will move that system. Like the system's probably just gonna move anyway if they had no games available. Let's be honest, it's just gonna like probably sell out based on like the pedigree. But like you're gonna want something to play there, so like why would you put two heavy hitters that close together? I don't know if like you're thinking of like a month. Like I think you're right like that. Like 1 to like 3 months, I think will be like the alternating between whatever they do.
yeah. I mean, obviously the first month it's going to sell out, and whenever they do their first restock of the system is when they're going to want Mario Kart. Because they don't want to release Mario Kart when the system's sold out.
Yeah.
They want to release it when there's like millions of these systems out there. So yeah, I mean, it worked. It worked for Switch, where they had Zelda, and then the next month Mario Kart.
That's
But
like
we'll see. We'll see what they do.
that is kind of I think that's a solid point that like they want Mario Kart to keep selling each month and they don't want it to maybe have like an interruption where it's like Switch 2s are sold out, everyone already bought Mario Kart, we're gonna have a month where look, Switch to chart #1 because this is not available right now, and like
I think there's going to be a lot stronger third party presence at launch than what Switch had. You remember Switch's launch? It was not great. I mean, it was Snipper Clips. It was Super Street Fighter 2.
Yep.
It was Bomberman.
Oh yeah.
It was Gaia 5 Complete, which is very good.
Yeah.
But again,
but
not like Zelda carried it. Big time.
it reeked. I'll be honest, it reeked of like, oh, here we go again, same type of third party support at launch that Nintendo always gets. I truly believe this time around, I'm with you. It's like, no, there will be.
I mean, it might be like Street Fighter 6 at launch. Versus like a shitty port of like Street Fighter 2.
So many games that couldn't make it onto Switch for technical limitations, or companies didn't want to spend the money to make it like a functional and impressive. They got it to run on Switch, but like, why burn that money, development money, when you could put it into like a Switch 2 version that runs very well and looks much more close to what you see on PS5 and Xbox and PC. And I think, we're going to have like a floodgate of those types of games, like in the last 2 years of third-party games that just haven't made it on the Switch, on top of like the other big hitting games.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there was Elden Ring at launch.
Oh yeah, like that's like what I wouldn't be shocked about that either. Like I swear I heard like something about that before. Like they'll put like Nintendo like you can make the character look like Link or something in Elden Ring.
There's gonna be some kind of costume.
Yeah, the costumes.
I mean, I think whereas Zelda carried the Switch launch, and I think 3D Mario is absolutely going to carry like the Switch 2 launch, like the third party support from the start is going to be obviously they came, many of them came along. But I think from the start, like when we get that showcase, it's going to be like, wow. It's like there's major support and it's going to be steady. So yeah, I think there's going to be just that first year is going to be crazy. I really do.
Yeah.
It's going to be exclusives and ports like you didn't think was possible.
So yeah, I do agree with that for sure. And the last thing I want to say on Mario Kart before I forget, like we're talking about like the guest characters, because I think it's more likely that Mario Kart will be the franchise that like embraces the Smash Brothers mentality next, where they start having a lot of more non Mario characters in Mario Kart. I could see like that being the next one to take on like that mantle, and having either like other Nintendo properties in there or even third party guest characters. I wanted to say that before I forgot. And also we were talking about like ports, third party ports. I think like current games, third party games will also be ported to. Well, like I think Monster Hunter Wilds will absolutely be on Switch 2 day one. And I that coming next year. I think like I believe it's coming next year. Like if they haven't said, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be a next year title. And I absolutely firmly believe that thing is going to be on there. Resident Evil 9, the one that's like, you know, all the rumors that we're going to get that like announced pretty soon, maybe as early as TGS. I don't think they'll be able to announce unless the reveal event happens before. That I expect Resident Evil 9 to have a iteration that will be on Switch too.
I'll take it farther. I think Dragon Quest 12 is going to be on Switch too.
Absolutely.
I think Dragon Quest 12 is going to be shown at the showcase.
I am with you 100% on that. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess Nintendo, you know, obviously Xbox has the deal for Atlas stuff. Nintendo has the deal for Dragon Quest. Even if it comes to other platforms, Dragon Quest games are announced at Nintendo Directs. And some of them have been exclusive lately, a lot of the spin-offs. So I think that's the third-party support, I think is just going to be I think it's going to be an avalanche of stuff. Just because it's like Nintendo's marketing is probably like, hey, Switch was #1 in the US, Japan, and even Europe sometimes for years. Switch 2 has a big chance to do the same. Do you want to miss out again?
Oh, absolutely.
So I just think it's going to be, I think it's going to be crazy for third parties. I just do. And Nintendo can be smart about the first party stuff. You know, I tweeted about this morning or yesterday, I forget, where I laid out every game Nintendo has published this year, and more than 50% of them were from their partners. Nintendo's making very little that's releasing this year. All their effort is on Switch 2. It's pretty obvious now. But they can slot it in where they want. They don't necessarily need like a game a month like they were able to manage for Switch. That was kind of crazy and insane. But, you know, with ports and HD remakes, who knows what they'll be able to do. But, yeah, I think just to circle back to the original question, yeah, I think it's going to be 3D Mario, and yeah, I think it's going to be really impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like, again, as I said, that's totally believable, and like I would not be shocked at all if that like ended up being the launch. But I'm with you. I think it's Mario Kart or 3D Mario from first party efforts from Nintendo.
But we both agree that both are going to launch year one.
Oh yeah, the worst case scenario for me is like one launches at launch, and within the first 9 months, the other one follows suit. Like 9 months after, it's like probably the tail end of it. You know, I would say like I wouldn't even like give it like a year. I'd say like 9 months. Like it probably
wouldn't be me on a video if I didn't mention Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah, of course.
I fully think like the next year, maybe not the first year, but the next year. There's going to be the next Smash Brothers.
Oh, so brand new one, because I was leaning towards they just take Smash Brothers Ultimate and do a definitive edition. Like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe style. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they'll do that if they can get all the third-party characters back, but like maybe they'll reboot it into something crazy with like all new models and stages, and maybe they'll take like this jump in visuals to like overhaul it. Either way is fine, but I think that's gonna happen. I do think there's even a big possibility of like Animal Crossing year one this time. I think there's a big possibility.
It's been a while, but also
I think the next 3D Kirby is going to be the next year.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's just a lot of possibilities. Nintendo's lasted Switch has lasted so long. Like people forget, like we already had all the big games like the first 5 years. And these last 3 years have been a lot of like just other stuff. Not bad, but not 30 million sellers over, you know. well, I shouldn't say that because we did have we did have Tears of the Kingdom last year. That was a huge game, in 2D Mario too. But this year is not like the year of like a 30 million seller. It's not, you know. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity for a big launch lineup, and of course, whatever Monolith Soft is working on, we know they're working on something big. Don't know if it's going to make it the first year, but I think we're going to see it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we see
so
it
I
too.
think so it's exciting. I think we both believe we're a lot closer to the reveal than we are far away.
Oh, yeah. I, I
I think we're close.
I think where people might disagree on is like when the actual release of the system is, how close
Yeah.
we are to that. There are people who put it all the way to like end of next year
Well,
as the
yeah,
release window.
I don't think it's going to be end of next year, but again, like there's actually one bigger game that Switch has coming next year that's probably 3 times bigger than anything they've released this year, and it's Pokemon Legends Z. They have that, and so yeah, I think could that be cross-gen? It might be. That actually might be too, where it's like that's also a Switch. It might be both, but obviously people are going to buy it for Switch too.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be surprise me. I don't think Pokemon Company would do that, but I think Nintendo might somehow just demand they do it this time, where they don't launch that on Switch only. So
Yeah, I could see that being like pushed on pretty hard by Nintendo.
and there's like the looming nature of Pokemon on Switch too. Whatever, because yeah, Pokemon Company has sold around 100 million copies of software on Switch. Very, very successful.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see like how involved Pokemon Company is in general. I always think they're involved whenever Nintendo decides to do like the light system, like the cheapest system. I feel like Pokemon Company like demands that for like the kids who are getting like multiple copies of the
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
So I think that's a factor too. But yeah, I think we're closer than people think.
That could probably be what the two versions of Switch 2, if the digital only and physical could also satisfy. Like that's like a requirement from the Pokemon companies. Like, well, you need to make them a cheaper model, so families might be
Yeah.
consider buying two if they can't. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit difficult at launch, but long term, it's like yes, you have a cheaper model right out of the gate. That means higher chance that multiple switches per household, which
Yeah.
satisfies Pokemon companies, requirements to make their upcoming one cross-gen. And beyond Pokemon Company, I'll say, because people are mentioning in chat, like Metroid Prime 4, I also think will probably be cross-gen,
Yeah.
or like an enhanced version on
People,
Switch 2. Yeah.
I've heard people say, "Oh, Metroid Prime 4 would be a great Switch 2 launch game." No, look, I'm not the biggest Metroid fan. I respect the series. It's not a big seller. That's not a system seller, especially when it's
Yeah.
the fourth game of a series. Because people are going to think, "Oh, I need to play all three," and that's going to hinder it.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I want to
So,
talk about something related to that real quick. So we were talking about like the third party support and developers, and something else that
yes.
came out this week, and it's tangential to this, but I think I can tie it into Switch 2 because one. We already talked about this third party publisher already, and I think they absolutely have to seriously be considering their next number entry, 17 at the
Oh,
end,
okay.
should
Yeah.
absolutely be strongly considering making Switch 2 the lead platform for Final Fantasy 17, given all the
Look,
discourse and information that came out this week about the financial situation with Final Fantasy as a series and Square Enix's financials. I did talk about it a little bit earlier this week, but I see this as a great opportunity because there have been so many discussions about. So to back up a second, a report came out this week from Square Enix themselves that acknowledged that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and Final Fantasy 16, up until this past week, PlayStation 5 exclusive, now
yeah.
also on PC, did not meet sales expectations. And that there is a growing discourse over whether it's as simple as Final Fantasy needs to get back to being on every platform that they can be on, and that would be the band-aid that fixes everything. It's like, oh, that was the problem. It just wasn't on multiple platforms. And then there's a whole other discourse about identity crisis within Final Fantasy. I want to start with the platform crisis because I do believe Rebirth or 16 in an alternate timeline if they had been developed for Switch first and had like versions on other platforms. So didn't not cutting edge visuals, but like has a nice, beautiful, like think of Xenoblade. Like look how nice Xenoblade looks. If they'd gone in a direction like that and Switch was the lead platform and it had ports on everything else, there's no way you can convince me it would have sold as worse or only as good as it did on PS5. It would have blown away those sales numbers, and I think it would have made Square Enix very happy. But that's just me. And that's why I think 17, they should strongly consider making 17 Switch to the lead platform for that and porting it over and doing whatever it takes to make that happen. I don't know if I sound crazy right now, Stealth, or what you're thinking about that. And I know that's a little bit of like a swerve from what we were talking about, but I have you on and I cannot not ask you about this situation.
I mean, I want to be very, very clear because the Final Fantasy fan base can be very animated. I don't think that Square Enix made a mistake not porting Final Fantasy 16 and Rebirth to Switch. Probably impossible, but I don't think I don't think they should do that. I do think Square Enix missed a big opportunity to make a ground up Final Fantasy game that they market as a core game on Switch, PlayStation, and PC.
Yep. That's what I was getting at too. I didn't mean
they
like
missed
a port.
A big opportunity because Switch only got like ports of Final Fantasy games and spin-offs of Final Fantasy games. I agree. You can't convince me that if they made like a ground up, maybe turn-based, just something quality that was made for Switch, PlayStation, and PC, that it was clear, okay, this is a core Final Fantasy RPG, that it wouldn't have sold 5 million units instantly, and done very, very well. And many Japanese developers they're not guilty of it, but look, like it or not, Switch is the most popular system in Japan, and Switch was the most popular system in the US for 5+ years. The install bases, by not making a game on Switch, especially in Japan, you're just automatically limiting sales. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I mean, and even like Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, I think could sell like not more than Final Fantasy Rebirth or 16, but like it could sell 3 million units, like 2 million in Japan, and then like 1 million in the US. Like it's going to sell in the ballpark, and that's just on Switch. I think it could do that. So yeah, I think for 17, well, yes, obviously they'd have to take a hit on visuals.
Yeah,
that's just the way it would be. But they could still make a very beautiful game, across all the platforms. Have it have a lot of RPG elements that people are looking for that maybe 16 didn't have so much of. And that game would sell a crap ton. I believe that. So yeah, I'm with you that
okay.
yeah, if they like, they can't go exclusive again. Like that's not gonna work.
And I don't think they are. I think they've said as much that's done.
but I also don't think just bringing it to Xbox is going to bring in that many people either.
Exactly.
People don't want to hear that, but that's just what I think. I think you'd have a better chance with PC at launch than Xbox bringing in people. But again, like if Switch 2 plays its cards right, it could be number one in the US and Japan very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And Square Enix is going to want to miss that boat again for Final Fantasy. Because Square Enix supported Switch like crazy. They're one of the best partners on Switch, but with Final Fantasy, not as heavily. So yeah, I'm with you. I think 17 really should be on Switch too.
Yeah, I think they I almost think it might be just forced upon whoever ends up developing it by the upper management, by the executives, or by the CEO. Just be like, you're not skipping Switch 2 for Final Fantasy going forward. Like it's like no, I think it's just gonna happen. It's just
I think Kingdom Hearts 4 is gonna be on Switch too.
Oh, I think they definitely are gonna try and get a version of that on Switch too. Kingdom Hearts 4, yeah. I think they're gonna try and make that happen.
But first, I think they're gonna bring like the story so far physically to Switch 2.
That exactly because they only have the cloud version. They're absolutely gonna bring a big physical compilation Kingdom Hearts to Switch 2. Oh yeah, I've been like saying they need to do that because it'll like generate so much buzz. Like, oh, it's old Kingdom Hearts, like coming to PC like was huge. Like that like made a lot of people happy. A
Yeah.
physical version, an all-in-one physical version coming to Switch too. Like
Yeah.
and a beautiful packaging and stuff like that. That will get people pretty excited. But yeah, I'm with you on.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and like just I keep predicting at every Nintendo Direct and it never comes true. Team Asano did tease Bravely Default news. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the first like new RPG on Switch 2. Um, but we'll see how that goes. I do think there's a new Bravely Default in development. I just believe it. And that's usually like the turn-based classic RPG thing. I think that could be like one of the first ones. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like a lot of Square Switch games have met or exceeded expectations. Trials of Mana, all the Team Asano games, and they just can't, like, I don't know, you just can't skip it for Switch 2. You just gotta go for it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it fits the MO that the CEO mandated that they're gonna,
For Switch
it
2,
sounds like
yeah.
they're maybe people. I said this too. That it sounds like they're embracing like what Capcom has been doing in the past, like 5-6 years,
Yeah.
where
But honestly, Capcom support hasn't been that great on Switch lately. They've been skipping a lot because they've had to.
yeah, I think because their tech maybe is a little bit harder because of the RE
Yeah.
engine. Just seems like it's maybe a little bit difficult to run on Switch. I don't know if that's true. It just seems like it probably is because we keep getting cloud versions of any of their like modern Resident Evil games,
Yeah.
and World never came to Switch. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they never even bothered to port that. We got our own one. They got their own ones, the specific ones, which was a smart idea. It was absolutely a absolutely smart idea to do that. When we were saying Final Fantasy should have done it, but like I think maybe to like simplify things, they should be bringing like Wilds to Switch 2, which we already said is gonna happen. But like
Yeah,
I think
Wild, Street Fighter 6, the Resident
Yeah,
Evil
Resident Evil,
games.
Street Fighter, Monster Hunter all need to come to Switch 2, like native version, not cloud versions, and like make that
Yeah.
like happen. And strongly consider like what I mean. Hopefully, that's one of the publishers that Nintendo was talking to pretty closely about what you need to make it so that like at least for a few years here we can get your games on here natively and not have to rely on like cloud ports for them. That's pretty important for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say like Capcom's like that's a big one too. The other ones like I feel like Sega, Bandai Namco, any of the other Japanese developers I think won't really have
Well,
too much of a difficulty getting their stuff on a Switch too. Yeah.
I mean, like, I think about Falcom,
Yep.
who didn't support Switch at the start, now is like all in on Switch.
Yeah.
They're gonna be there, right away, putting everything they can probably on Switch 2. Because it'll be easier for them with Switch 2 and PS5, than like Switch and PS4 and PS5, I think. So yeah, I think just they're, all of the Japanese developers should be lining up to put their games on Switch 2, I think. And I do think it's gonna happen. I don't think that's unrealistic.
Yeah. Uh, I agree, and I think it's they're going to embrace it more than ever. And I'm excited about what that possibility in that future is going to be. Besides just like Japanese developers looking to Western developers, I have two on here that I'm like I think could like be like big, the probably bigger announcement than everything we said. The first one, I'm just getting out of the way, and I'm channeling Michael Huber right now. Any chance that GTA 6 comes to Switch 2, like day one, because they don't do
Maybe not day
PC,
one.
but like can they do PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch 2 day one?
I mean, that would be huge. I don't know if it would be day one, but like I don't
Okay.
think. And again, like we don't know the scope of Grand Theft Auto 6. We saw a very
Yeah.
brief trailer. Um, why not? I mean, sure. I mean, it's not going to look as good as the other versions, but
Yeah. This is like a pipe dream, but like man, like just having that, like that'd be like a mic drop moment. That's like, guess what? It's gonna run on Switch 2, and like here's footage of it running. Yeah, it looks not quite as good, but man, that does still look pretty damn good. and it's running pretty smooth. I don't know. I don't think Switch 2 will be powerful enough to really do that. I agree with a lot of people in chat are saying like day and date, probably not happening, no chance, because
But
they're probably
eventually,
going to need to spend their time. Like the PC port and the Switch 2 version will probably be like projects they'll have to invest more resources in to get that up and running. PC, like just because they want to hold it back because they don't want to. They don't usually release on PC. I'm not saying it's like as difficult to get on PC, but that's something they usually delay. And the
yeah.
Switched version, I think, is just going to require special resources to get
Oh,
that
yeah.
running.
And I mean, and in terms of another developer, I think Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be there.
Oh yeah.
One of my predictions, I think there could be a Mario plus Rabbids collection.
Oh.
Both games plus all the DLC.
Oh, yeah, they could do that, and I think it would be wise to do that
Would
because
sell.
that team's done. Like they're not
Gone.
making any more of those. The
No.
key people behind that have departed, so
Yeah.
we're sadly probably won't see another one of those. But it'd be nice to like just have that on there again. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how well they will honestly sell at this point, but I wouldn't be against it. You
I mean,
know?
I would double dip for collection with all the DLC on the cart. Like that means something to me as a physical collector, so I think it would be interesting. Western developers not expecting anything from EA. You've been burned too many times to think that they're gonna actually support it, but we'll see. Again, like I don't think Western support is honestly super important for Switch. It's for Switch 2. It hasn't been important for Switch. Um, like Switch has been driven by Japanese games. I'll go to the bank. I'll just believe that completely.
Yeah, I think that it's been one of their strongest selling points. I have
Yeah.
another one that's crazy too because like GTA was pretty crazy. I think it may someday come to Switch too. The other one is more like what's been happening recently with a certain of the big three's exclusives making it their way over to another platform. Would they also and they seem to have a decent working relationship with Nintendo in recent years. Do you think there's any chance some of those Xbox exclusives that have been making their way to PlayStation might make
Starfield?
their way over to Switch too as well?
Maybe. I mean, honestly, like, did you expect both Ori games to come to Switch at
I
all?
mean, those are all like Cuphead and all that. That
Yeah.
was pretty surprising for the time. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but
I
like
didn't believe that.
I mean, like I I I expect a few of those like existing ones also like receive probably ports. Like, wouldn't be shocked if they just make a Hi-Fi Rush port for Switch 2 as well. And any of the previously announced ones, like maybe sure put Starfield on Switch. I think that one might be like not so. I don't
I
know how many
think
people would be
Indiana
too interested
Jones
in
could,
that.
because they've already announced the PlayStation version.
Yeah. But like, yeah, Indiana Jones. It's like that on Switch too, like next
I think
year.
so.
Yeah, that might be a big deal, I feel like. And who knows what else that could mean for the future. But like, I do expect to see like one of those bigger caliber titles from Microsoft make it
The
over to
next
Switch
Halo,
2.
Switch 2 exclusive.
Which one?
Halo, the next one. Just skip Xbox and make it
Just
Switch 2
skip that.
exclusive.
Just skip Xbox. Yeah, just put on Switch 2. That will go over perfectly with everyone right there.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, like there've been rumors of a Banjo Kazooie, but I think we've last heard there's nothing in development on that. If there ever was, you'd have to put it on Switch too.
oh, please.
But yeah, I mean, I think anything that Xbox deems worthy to bring to PlayStation has a chance on Switch too.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Also, Switch 2 when it launches the reveal event. That's when they're gonna finally announce Silk Song's release date. Everyone, this is gonna happen then, right? That's the moment, right?
That's the place.
I had to find a way to bring Silk Song into discussion somehow because, man, that game.
I mean, I do think the
let it-
Switch 2 showcase is going to be like one of the most watched events ever for Nintendo. Because of the anticipation and the games we all think are going to be there, and it's just going to be like a crazy, crazy event. And that's honestly, I just think it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
I don't think there's going to be another Nintendo Direct before the Switch showcase.
that's what I was gonna ask you. So like we are in September. We are almost at the end of September here, and we haven't gotten a September Direct like we have historically gotten it for all but like 1 year. 2015, I think someone pointed out was like the 1 year they didn't actually do any kind of September Direct. So, but it does that really surprise you? It sounds like it really doesn't actually.
No, because they did one in August, for partner games, and I think they're just gonna ride out. They have Zelda coming this month. They have Mario Party coming in October. Then they have Mario and Luigi coming in November. And so I think, and then they have Donkey Kong HD coming in January. So I think they're just gonna ride out. They don't need to announce any more first party games right now. I think I don't think there's gonna be anything until the Switch reveal showcase.
And that's the big question, Stealth. When do you actually believe that that showcase is going to happen at this point? Like, if you were to like to bet, what month would you put it in at this
It could
point?
be next month. It could be next month. I mean, do you believe? I've been going back and forth on this. I thought maybe they wouldn't do it in 2024 to give Switch like one strong holiday season, alone again, discount it, do whatever you have to ship units. But now it's like after everything we've heard, I'm like, maybe I'm team, 2024 for reveal. And that's kind of where I stand. I think it's going to be just before December, the end of December. Is that what you
Okay.
think?
So I actually after like the Game Awards, like after Game Awards time in
Well,
December, or
if it's that long, I mean, I could see it in October, November.
okay,
Yeah, I could see it anytime this year.
okay,
But yeah, I mean,
sorry,
like a big
got you.
that would be like a blockbuster moment to like to like show the Switch at the Game Awards. Maybe like a little Mario 3D Mario and be like, hey, the showcase is in January, like they did in Switch for Switch.
I
Like you know what? I've imagined it this way. Like they at the Game Awards they do Game of the Year, and then usually that's the end of the show. But what if like after the Game Awards, Geoff comes back and says, "Hey, I have one more thing," and then he announces like the president of Nintendo? How crazy would that be? Like maybe he could pull that off. I don't know, but
I mean, it gets a
um,
lot of eyeballs. Like, there's no
yeah,
denying that the Game Awards has a lot of people watching it. So, obviously, Nintendo's own things command a lot of attention, but the combined, you know, obviously they're not going to pre-announce that, but like, I still think it would have enough eyeballs on it that Nintendo would consider doing something like that. I guess my
yeah.
question, the follow-up question, besides like when they would do it, do you think it will follow the same kind of like path or blueprint for the reveal like with Switch? Do you think there'll be like a short kind of like reveal, then like an actual like big presentation blowout, or do you think they're just gonna like do it all in one this time?
No, I think there's gonna be a teaser trailer, and then they have to have a blowout. They have to have a showcase showing the hardware, showing the first party games in the first year, showing the third party support. They have to do that. But yeah, I could see them. I laugh because it's like always remember that first teaser trailer with like people playing Mario Odyssey at like a cocktail party, and like playing Splatoon in like an arena. Kind of unrealistic spots to be playing games. But yeah, I think there's going to be something like that where there's going to be like some games like off screen, like kind of not the focus, but like they're playing the games. Yeah, I could see just a trailer drop.
All right. Yeah, I think they will do it that way too. I think you're probably, I'm
Any,
kind of with you,
any,
Stealth.
anything that worked with Switch, they're probably going to do again.
Yeah, I think the like just the reveal of it, like
Yeah,
just at least showing it, it exists. We've said it exists, but here it is. It's real. Maybe just as you said, like it's very similar to thing. I don't know if they're gonna go the same like style. I mean, Nintendo kind of always does like sort of the same style for like their hardware reveal teasers. But I do think this. I'm strongly believe this year between October and beginning of I think early December, like up till the Game Awards window is when we'll get that teaser. I think it's more likely next month, honestly, with the January presentation. And then
yeah,
I'll answer the next question is like I think it's like a Q2 to early Q3 release for Switch 2. Like
yeah,
I think like the tail end of it's like August to maybe
yeah.
beginning of September, like at the latest for for
I
that
mean,
hardware.
Nintendo has wiggle room because while Switch hardware sales are down, it's still selling pretty fine. And again, like Pokemon Legends Z could sell 20 million units in the blink of an eye. So like they have that. If they want to slot that like before and then have a version on Switch 2. So that they're not in dire straits here. Like it's still doing pretty good. So yeah, I think we're aligned there. But yeah, it's an exciting time for sure. And it's coming up.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too. I've been just waiting to see this because I feel like part of me just will have like a sigh of relief when it's revealed, and also like a double sigh of relief when it's like if it's like just kind of iterative. It's like okay, no weird gimmick. Okay, whew, all right, no dual screens, no motion, Wii Motion Plus or anything like that. It's just like hey, and it's called Switch 2. It's like all right, they got it. In my opinion, they got it they got it right, and I'm excited to see those games running on the Switch 2 finally, and maybe announcing what like we're gonna see for that. So just the fact that it's gonna finally happen, because like I can't. How many years have we gone through these damn rumors? And I mean, dating back to like
Yeah.
Switch Pro rumors, it's like we've just had so many rumors about some kind of new piece of Switch successor hardware in some fashion, and it's like finally we get the real deal. It's like thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's kind of real now. Because especially because Nintendo said that they're going to announce it when before a certain date. They've Nintendo was announced the Switch's successor is real and it's coming. They've said that. When we had the Switch Pro rumors, they didn't. So it kind of felt more like whatever. Like we know it's coming. It's just a matter of when and how, So and again, like the developers seemingly did meet at Nintendo of America. They were there for like a secret clandestine meeting, So it feels a lot more real. I never commented a lot on the Switch Pro because there wasn't so much that was concrete, but we've had just so much for Switch 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all this seems just way more believable. Like most of the stuff seems more believable this time, and like the amount and frequency of things coming out. Obviously, people were piggybacking back in like previous rumors, but I don't think to like this extent. And then having actual real evidence. They said like the meeting happened, and it's like okay, we cannot explain what was going on here, and it's a big question mark. So there's more than just like a third party unverified source saying here's an image or here's what I heard from like someone. Like this actually happened and is verifiable. So it's nice, it's nice to know that like and on top of like as we said before, the deadline that Nintendo gave themselves for revealing this thing. So yeah, we're so close, I feel like, and it's exciting times. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say about like Switch 2 and the rumors or that we didn't cover before we kind of like wrap it up here.
No. I mean, there have been rumors that, obviously they think Switch 2 is going to be fully backwards compatible, physical and digitally. I also believe that. I never thought there was a chance there wouldn't be because Switch sells so much software, Nintendo sells so much Switch software, it wouldn't make any sense for them to drop it. But yeah, I mean, like again, like if it launches with the next 3D Mario, it would take something pretty catastrophic for me not to buy it. Like that's a system seller to me. Like I'm playing that 3D Mario. That's it. So like I'm not, I'll be there probably day one to play that Mario game, or whatever it is that they have. But yeah, I think we're close. Again, we have the meeting that was inexplainable. We have Nintendo saying that it exists and they're going to announce it before the end of March. And now we're getting like these like Chinese factory reports, which honestly to me is more believable than anything. Because that's how things leak a lot of times. It's like from people making it.
All the iPhone leaks, they're always accurate. They're not even like there's not even like take a grain of salt when those things happen. It's just like this is it. It's been revealed. It's like okay, now it's just for like Apple to like, just show off like the actual physical thing, and like even that like people are like no, I already saw it. Like we know what it looks like. So this could just be like the reality we're entering. As long as Switch or Nintendo decides to make a hybrid console, which needs to be portable and has those portable. The parts are just coming from the same places. It's like just inevitable. I mean, Nintendo could try, but I mean, Apple has tried and they have not succeeded. So it's like I don't know where Nintendo would succeed where Apple has failed in that, given their resources. But yeah, I'm with you, man. This is it's good to finally have this about to happen and see the real deal finally, man.
Yeah,
So happy.
I love Switch. I think it's Nintendo's best system ever, with the best library ever, without question. And some people still hold on to the SNES. I think in terms of library, like the Switch smokes it. And I love Switch, but like, yeah, I'm ready for new hardware. I'm ready for games not to be skipped on it
Yep.
and things like that. So yeah,
So true.
I'm ready for whatever's next.
Heck yeah. With you there. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Before we wrap up, Stealth, can you let our listeners and viewers know, if you have anything upcoming that you want to like talk about, or anything you want them to know before we sign off here?
Nothing in particular.
Okay.
They can follow me on Twitter at Stealth40K. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads too with the same name. I've also done a number of different giveaways this year for different games. A lot for Square Enix this year. I'm working with them again on those things. So I'm sure, I'll have a giveaway coming up pretty soon. So yeah, just stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on this weekend. And thanks, chat, for all your participation and your questions. Always a pleasure to interact with you on this show. And yeah, we should be back in 2 weeks from now with another episode. So until then, have a great week and see you soon.